So let's give you some color. Let's walk you in slowly because it's not the size of the cut; it's how you use it. Let's ease it in there.
Okay.
Today, the Fed funds rate was dropped 25 basis points, or 0.25% if you're uninitiated, dropping the Fed funds rate from 4.25 to 4.5%. But the big news, the talk of the town, the savory little tidbits that you soak up with the bread of the meal, was the rhetoric that the FOMC dropped in addition to this rate cut. Because the rate cut, as you said on the previous show, was largely expected.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago Mercantile Exchange, World Interest Rate Probability, everybody had predicted this to almost 100% probability.
Because the Fed and all the FOMC members had laid the groundwork and left all the tea leaves for everybody to read. So the market was baking in at a 94% expectation that they were going to cut.
Yeah, it's a big change. So we saw the FOMC go from 4 expected potential cuts down to 2 next year.
Oh, yeah.
So a big pivot in what they think the market needs as far as easing of Fed monetary policy.
Right. So what Chris is talking about here is this was one of those meetings where after, in addition to the meeting, the Fed releases their summary of economic projections, where in that report, it lists out, how many of the FOMC members believe the rate should be where it is today, known as the dot plot. And it also lays the groundwork and the expectation of what you can expect to see down the road. And that just means what they expect to see as of today for next year and the following year. Prior to today, the expectation was that by the end of next year, the Fed funds rate would come down to 3.5%. Just for everyone as like a high level, that would be a full percentage point lower than where we are today. So at the most 4 potential rate cuts out of 8 meetings.
25 basis points each.
Right. There's only 8 meetings a year,
right?
So that would mean at least half of those meetings there'd be cuts. Now they've adjusted that expectation to only 2.
For a total of 50 basis points, most likely.
Most likely. And now theoretically, they could do all 50 basis points at once, but given the rhetoric that we heard today, that's probably not going to happen. And you shouldn't expect it to happen till later on in the year.
So I took the liberty of looking up the current probability of rate cuts going into 2025. This is a very special Christmas episode, so Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays for those of you who don't celebrate Christmas. And, for January, you get a 6% probability of a rate cut in 2025.
Not happening, Chief.
Yeah, pretty low. That's as close to you're never going to get this as they could possibly get.
Right.
March, it does go up to 42%. The May meeting has a 49% probability of a rate cut. And in June, 6 months into 2025, you finally have your greater than 50% probability, 63% probability of a rate cut. It's only for 25 basis points, by the way. And in December of next year, 1 year from now, 37% probability of a rate cut. So the market is very uncertain.
And it was very unhappy with this decision. And I actually wanted to ask you this live on the show.
Little bait me question. All
intentionally, right. No, because I'm actually curious. Because if the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the World Interest Rate Probability from Bloomberg all had expected at a 90%, 94, 95% chance that there was going to be a rate cut. And then the Fed decides to, in fact, cut rates by 25 basis points.
Right.
How does the market then, why is there that they were signaling to everyone we will be cutting rates, and then we experienced a day like we did today where the Dow went down 1,100 points.
Yeah, and so
which is massive for everybody out there.
It was a massive swing day. And if you look at the stock market ticker, I like to think of the stock market as red and green, right? Red, bad day, green, good day. There really is no in between.
There you go.
And you can see mostly red or mostly green if you want to try to find an intermediary position. But today was definitely a red day. Definitely a day that'll go down as a memorable one. And we'll get into some of the statistics as to why a little bit later on in the show. But to answer your question, it goes back to what we said on the previous episode. I think it was 260, where we talked about my concerns over the potential for a rate cut not being necessary right now. And the reason why is you looked at so much of the data that was out there. And I don't know if you follow me on X. You don't have an X account, do you?
I don't have an X account, but I saw the post that you posted on the gram.
On the Grammys?
Because if it doesn't come onto the gram, then it didn't really happen,
So I'm actually using my laptop today. We're trying a little bit of a different setting, and plus, Saied and I want to be a little bit more professional every once in a while. I mean, we could fake professionalism.
I mean, let us know in the comment section below if you'd like us to keep it a little bit more professional, or you like the like the shows that the way they go. Because
So-
right now YouTube's not playing that game with us, Chief.
It's because we're very inflammatory. We are YouTube's kryptonite.
Right.
We say things that we shouldn't be saying, and those words that we shouldn't be saying prevent us from advertising or getting pushed in the algorithm.
We're gluten, bro.
I'm
That's
okay
what we
with
are.
that.
We're inflammatory. We're gluten.
The only way you're going to see us consistently come up in your feed is if you like and subscribe, and you got to subscribe.
Have to. There's a huge percentage of the people that actually tune into the show that aren't subscribed. So we understand that it's hard to get crossover, but we're on Apple or Spotify. If you're listening to us on Spotify, I hope you're enjoying the viewing option that we've laid out for you there. Chris has done a lot of work to make sure that we're up to date. They've done some really cool things over there. I think
They're going for YouTube, brother.
we believe Spotify is making a play to go after YouTube.
Yeah. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yeah?
I'm here for it. Yeah,
Well,
please.
I'll be honest. I love me some YouTube up until they're they're affecting the show.
They're just wildly difficult. Believe it or not, despite all the content that's on YouTube, they have a lot of guardrails and restrictions that mess with their algorithm, whereas you can say whatever you want on Spotify and no one's going to say anything.
No one's flagging you. Yep.
Yeah.
Or if you're watching us over on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, ring that notification bell, do all the moist goody good stuff.
Yeah. So on X this morning, I want to set the tone right. I get up in the mornings, I do my 20 minutes of cardio on the bike, right? That's usually my me time to think about stuffs, right? And today's stuffs was I knew the FOMC meeting was happening. So I decided to put down some thoughts, which I do on X quite a bit. The 10-year yield is 85 basis points up since the Fed's rate cut cycle began. The average rate on the 30-year mortgage is up from 6% to 7% in the last 3 months. So we're seeing things go in a very different direction than a lot of people had thought they were going to go.
Mm-hmm.
All the models show a 25 basis point rate cut today. But is it warranted is my question. CPI, PPI, and PCE, all three are the metrics that the Fed, the FOMC tracks. Is inflation under control? They're all rising as the job market softens, and now we get information about the job market being artificially inflated from the government hiring 50,000 employees a month. Remember when the Inflation Reduction Act came out, like I think it was 2 years ago, we were still in the garage.
Yep.
And you and I did that episode over it, and we're like, 87,000 IRS workers. God damn, there's a lot of IRS workers.
they come to audit your ass.
They were basically doing that a month across all the government agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't sound so huge. When you
so if you believe in it, if that's the case, and that is what in fact the Fed is leaning on for their decision to cut 25 basis points today, right? Because inflation has not gone under control.
Nope.
So giving them more of a reason to hold rates where they are. The economy has not been suffering based on GDP prints, so you don't need to cut there.
I believe GDP is artificially inflated by government spending.
Absolutely, that could be the case.
What's up?
But if they're basing it off of what's being reported, the reports are showing positive numbers. It's showing that the economy is healthy, even though you and I both know that it's not.
I know.
It's not.
You got to be, quote, data dependent. But are they, though?
They're not, though. So if they're actually buying into the rhetoric of, these job numbers have been inflated by government jobs, then they actually know that unemployment or employment is actually softening. The labor market is softening, and could be real trouble around the corner here. My issue with the decision that they made today is, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that are not financially literate, right? And a cut, not only a cut today, but the last 3 meetings there have been cuts, right? What does it do? It almost justifies and encourages people that better times are ahead.
They believe that narrative, too.
They believe
That's the crazy thing.
That's the thing, right? So, and what's that? It's quantitative easing, makes it easier to borrow money, big corporations, mid-cap companies, right? What does that ultimately do? They'll borrow more money to grow the economy more, and that's ultimately going to have a resurgence in inflation, not solving their inflation problem.
Yeah, and I think that's why you saw the pivot and what they think is going to happen next year. So I also, after I do my 20 minutes cardio, I get into the cold plunge, and I know how you love it when I talk about cold plunging on the show.
I know you're back to cold plunging.
I'm back in, man.
They sent you the replacement.
And it works so much better than the previous one did.
Oh, really?
I think the previous one had some kind of mechanical defect coming from. I had one of the first out of the factory. Like they hooked me up.
Mm.
So I think there was something there that just didn't work. This one works spectacular. The water's cleaner, it runs better. So maybe I just had a bootleg version.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
So I get into cold plunge. I like to do it nude. So for those of you driving, close your eyes. You're in an accident. Imagine. Might be worth it. Subject matter, subjective.
Okay.
So I also posted a second tweet or X post. The language there is still confusing.
Yeah.
Today is a bigger day for the future of our economy than people realize. A 25 basis point rate cut is a near certainty based on world interest rate probability and Chicago Mercantile Exchange. But is it the appropriate move? What's more important, the FOMC following through or the data-dependent approach? We are watching history unfold.